everyone, Becca here, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. Today we're going to just be doing one of my standard sewing tutorials, and I'm going to be sewing up the cargo pants from Lowland Kids. These are a pretty relaxed fit jogger pant. They have a fold over elastic waistband, a fold over elastic cuff, so they're kind of like what you think of like a OG like 90s style big loose fit sweatpants type style. I'm going to be using a French terry on these. You could use something with a little less stretch because they are looser fitting, and then they do have pockets on the front, and then they have an optional patch pocket. I'm not going to actually be doing the back pocket, but I will walk you through it. I'm going to make these for my almost year-old daughter, and I just don't see the need for the pocket, and I feel like sitting in car seats and things like that, it wouldn't be the most comfortable. So I'm not going to do it. I'll walk you through how to do the flap and how to attach it, but I'm not going to do it, and I will be doing the front pockets. Or if there's something specific you need help on, you can go down in the description and you can click through and pick that spot out that you need. At some point I'm going to be compiling a whole list of all of the Lowland Kid pant patterns and doing a comparison video. I am working my way through all of those, and I will compare, you know, the fit, the complexity of the pattern, the time it takes to sew the pattern, the different options on the pattern, and things like that. So when that is available, I will put a link to it down below so you can check that out. And anything else that I mentioned in the video, or any tools or anything that I use, will also be linked down below. So let's get started. Alright, to start off, we're just going to go over our pattern pieces. And like I said, this is a French terry from Raspberry Creek. This white side is the wrong side. This is a little bit of a different one. I don't know if it's considered brushed or not, but this is the right side here, this pink side. And then the back is here. And it has a little bit of stretch. It's not super stretchy, but like I said, that is fine for this pattern. This is from Raspberry Creek. I do have an affiliate link for them below if you want to check them out. They are one of my favorite fabric shops. They have tons and tons of cute prints. They also have great solids. That is like what this is, of cotton spandex, French terry, rib knit. They also do custom printing as well. So make sure you check them out. For this pattern, we're going to have 2 back pieces, and there you want to make sure they're cut opposites or mirror images, meaning that when you lay them on top of each other, either right side or wrong side together, they look the same. And then you're going to have 2 opposites of your front piece, and if you were not doing the front pocket, this piece here would not be cut out. It would just kind of be straight and follow those lines there. I don't know if this even has the option technically to not do a pocket. So if you don't want to do the front pockets, all you would do, actually let me just check that real quick. Okay, so I don't think that this pattern has it written in there that you are able to leave out the pockets, but if you wanted to, it's very easy to leave out the patterns and leave out the pockets, and that would make this pattern sew up a lot quicker. But what you would do is, if you had a paper pattern, you could use the paper pattern for your back pocket piece, which that is what this is here. And you would basically just lay it on top and line up this side here and your top, and then just cut straight along those lines, and then cut here again, following that angle, continuing it and doing that down. If you were using a projector, you could even do this without your pattern. I would just cut up here, follow that line my ruler up with this seam, and then do the same thing here, follow it, and then where they would meet would be your corner. And then you would just skip all of the pocket things and sew up that side seam when we would get to that step. So super easy to omit the pockets if you wanted. But doing the pockets, you're going to have 2 opposites of your pocket back piece, and then the front pocket bag, you're going to have 2 opposites. Now if you're doing the back cargo pocket, this is your little flat piece, and there are markings on the pattern piece. That's what these lines are there. Let's see if you can see them. I just traced them in a marker, which is what I typically use, and those are your fold lines, which I'll talk about. And then you would also have the bottom part of the pocket which is like the actual pocket piece, and that is just like a square piece that you would have cut out. So we're gonna set everything aside besides our pant fronts and our pocket fronts. And I'm actually gonna just show you on one leg because it's gonna be the same on both. I'm just going to set one pant leg aside. This is the one we're gonna work on. So I have it laying here with my right side up. Now we're gonna take our pocket front and we're gonna find the piece that when you lay it down right sides together, your three edges here all line up. So this inside curve, your top, and your side. And we are just going to pin along this curved edge here and sew down that seam right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew that up and be right back. All right, and so once you have that sewn on, it'll look like that. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip this out and back over so that when you're looking at it right sides together, it is a little bit hidden. You can press this down, or you can just kind of finger press it like this and get it lined up. And here's what it would look like from the back. And you want to make sure that this seam is really just like right at the middle of that fold, and that nothing is hanging over the top or anything like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to again keep this nice and flat there, and you're just going to top stitch along here at a 1/2 inch from your folded edge. Now I just use a basic straight stitch. I'll lengthen my stitch length and just sew down there when I'm top stitching. I don't really have any issues with it, especially on this pattern again because it is not fitted, so there's really no issue there. So I'm going to top stitch that and be right back. All right, so I have this top stitched here, and you can see right there. You can do this like on a sewing machine, or you can use a cover stitch if you have one, but you can see that. And this is just gonna help your pocket stay down and not flip out when it's being worn. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip this over here, and we're going to then kind of lay it out like this. It's gonna look a little bit awkward here, but that's okay. And we're gonna take our pocket back pieces, and now we're gonna find our pocket back piece that lines up our curved edge when they are right sides together. So that is the piece I need here. So we are going to start up here at the top and line up this curved edge, starting up at the top and working our way down and around this curved edge. You just want to make sure that you're keeping your pants out of the way. You don't want to catch those in there. And then you're just going to sew down and around this curve here on these sides only. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and be right back. All right, so once you have that sewn on, it'll look like that. And when you flip your pocket open, it'll look like this. And so here you can see how I was talking about. Now if you didn't do the pocket, it would basically look like this, but it would just all be one piece and everything would be lined up. And now the last part of our pocket is we are just going to baste the top and side here. So you just want to make sure that all of your pocket pieces are laying flat, nice and lined up on your side seam, and then same on your top there. And we're just going to baste those down so that it's a little bit easier when we get to sewing those side seams and don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to go ahead and baste those and then do all of those steps on my other front pant leg and be right back. I got those basted down, and if you aren't familiar with what basting is, it's basically a temporary stitch that you put in to hold your pieces in place. So it's kind of like a semi-permanent pin. You just go to your machine, set your stitch length to the longest stitch length, which is typically like a 4 or 5 straight stitch, and then you just sew that down. So that is just so that we can keep our pocket pieces together and lined up. And sometimes the basting stitches will need to be removed. If you can see them, you just want to make sure you do it in the seam allowance so that then you don't have to worry about it. And sometimes like on stretch patterns and things like that, you may have to remove them because otherwise your pattern won't stretch. But that's just a quick rundown of what a basting stitch is if you weren't aware. But we have these done, so now we're going to set these aside. And if you're going to do the back pocket, I will show you here. So this is your pocket flap, and you had these markings on there, and like I said, you're going to need to transfer those to your pattern piece. And so I'm going to start by flipping it over to the wrong side facing up, and you would want to iron these, or you could use, I'm going to use just a washable glue stick here. I love doing these. These are great. Another option for basting items. Like I said, just these glue sticks. So I'm just going to use this here. And you're going to fold along your lines on both sides of the top of your pocket. And so you can see here how I just fold that over and press it. Glue sticks are great for anything like that. It's so easy and quick. They are so cheap. You can find them anywhere. Doesn't have to be a sewing supply store, which is why I absolutely love them. And they do also, when they dry, they harden a little bit, which will help if you have issues with your fabric stretching out when you sew it. So once you have that pressed like that, you are going to top stitch around this edge here, making sure that you catch your seam in all of those pieces, and then it would be stitched around like that. So your flap ends up being a little rectangle. For the square pocket, I am just going to, let me find a piece of fabric. Here we go. Okay, so for the square pocket, we're gonna, or for the bottom pocket bag, we're gonna say this is our pocket bag. You're going to fold your sides over and press those, and then you're gonna fold your top down and press that, and then you're gonna top stitch across your top piece there. And I'm gonna use some pins. I don't want to glue this down because this is for another project. So fold your sides in, and then your top you're gonna fold down and top stitch across here on the top. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your back pant leg, and there was markings on the pattern piece for the placement on your top piece. And so what you would do is you're gonna lay your top of your piece. So this is my marking on my pattern piece, we're gonna say. You're gonna lay your top piece down, right side facing down, and the top of it facing up. And then you're going to stitch across here on this flap 1/8 of an inch away from your raw edge. So you're gonna stitch there. And so what that's gonna do is then it's gonna fold over like that, and it's gonna hide that raw edge there. You could also finish that edge with a serge stitch if you wanted to before attaching it. And then what you're gonna do is, what I like to do here is I will just take my pocket and lay it lining up the top of my seam with my line, or the top of my pocket, and then make sure it's straight, and then you're just gonna flip it down like that, making sure your bottom stays lined up. And then just like we did here at the top, we're going to top stitch this pocket down at 1/8 of an inch. And then once you have that sewn and this one sewn, I'm going to flip this back up here, and you are going to have this folded under because that was our seam, get it laying nice and flat, and then you're just going to top stitch all the way around these 3 edges of your pocket. And then this piece will fold down on top of it here, and then you can top stitch this down along that fold so that the flap stays down, and then your pocket is done. You always could add a snap or something here to keep that pocket closed, because that will probably flap open, and for me personally that would bother me. And so again, you would just top stitch like 1/8 of an inch away from the folded edge. But since we're not doing the pocket, we're just going to put all this stuff aside and move on. And then you could also do that on both pant pieces. You could do one back pocket. It's kind of up to you there on how you want to do it. All right, now we are going to go into the construction of our pants. So if you were skipping the pockets or something, this is where you would start. So the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to start with our back pieces right now. We're going to line them up. We're going to line up this crotch curve here and pin that. And we're also going to do the same thing with our front pieces. So I'm going to do that one. And then our front pieces here, we're going to lay out. Again, lay them right side together, lining up our crotch curve and pin those together, matching up those raw edges. And then we're just going to sew down this curve and sew down that curve. So I'm going to go ahead and sew those up and be right back. Once you have those sewn, they'll look like that. So I'm going to now open up. I'm going to turn these sideways so that it fits in the screen. We're going to open up our back legs like that with the right side up, and then we're going to take our front legs and lay them on top, right sides together, lining up our outer seam. So I'm going to start up here at my waistline. You should always work waist down when it comes to pants. I'm going to pin this here. And then this is why we basted those pockets down, because now we don't have to worry about that. It's all just nice and together. We don't have to worry about anything flapping or not being even. And then we're just going to pin down there, and then we're going to head over to our other side, going down that side seam, keeping those raw edges nice and lined up all the way down to the ankle. And then you're just going to go ahead and sew down this seam here and sew down that seam there. So I'm going to do that real quick and be right back. All right, so we have those side seams sewn. And if you were doing the shorts right now, you would hem them. So you would open up your pant leg like here. Say this was the bottom of your shirt, shorts, fold it up, top stitch. And then here, we're going to do basically the same thing, but we're going to be adding our elastic now. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our pant leg like that, and we are going to fold up this bottom hem. And no, I'm sorry. We are going to go this way, and we're going to fold up our pant legs wrong sides together, wrong sides, and then we're going to top stitch that and do that on both pant legs. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick and be right back. All right, so once we have those sewn, we have like a little tunnel here, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut our elastic. So you can look in the instructions for your elastic length. The width is 1 inch for all the sizes for the ankle elastic. So that's what I have here, and I am going to cut mine to size. This is a 12-month size, so just for reference, if you were wondering, and I need to cut it at a 6 1/4 of an inch. And if you saw me, I was stretching this quite a bit. Before you ever cut any of your elastic, you want to do that and stretch it to the max quite a few times, just to make sure that it is its true size when you cut it and that it doesn't stretch out anymore after you sew it. So you always want to exercise your elastic. So I'm going to do that. If you already cut it and you did not pre-stretch your elastic, that's okay. Just go ahead and give it a couple stretches. I usually, if I forget, go to from a couple different ends, bigger pieces, you know, you got to do in sections, but stretch it and then remeasure it. And it may have stretched a little bit. It most likely did. And then you just trim it down to the size that you need it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our elastic pieces, and whatever tool you prefer. I use a bodkin. This is my absolute favorite tool for threading elastic. It's got these little teeth on it. It's like kind of like tweezers, and then it has this little washer that tightens everything up and holds it together, and nice rounded head, makes everything go through nice and easy. So you just put it on, clamp it down, and then slide it into your hole and pull it through. And then you're going to just kind of keep pulling it until one end is right at the edge of your fabric. So you want to be careful you don't pull it too much. I'm just going to keep adjusting it. And then I'm actually going to use a actual pin here instead of a clip. A pin is just a little bit more secure and it can't slip out of there. I'm going to pin that in place, and then I'm going to keep pulling my elastic through and bunching up the elastic in the middle, getting my elastic to the edge again. So lining up that edge of the elastic again there. I'm going to put another pin on this side here to keep it from pulling out. I'm gonna leave everything gathered up in the middle there, and then you're just gonna go ahead and sew up and down this elastic piece to secure it in place. Now you could just baste it, or you could even just leave it pinned if you wanted to. So I'm just gonna leave it pinned here for the sake of ease of this video, and then you would just repeat those same steps on this side here. So we're just going to thread our elastic through. You also want to make sure that your elastic isn't twisted. It shouldn't be too hard to keep it straight, since this is such a small piece. It usually is more likely to twist the longer your elastic is and the more you have to thread it through. So we're going to line up this edge right there. Again, pin it into place, pull this through to that edge. Again, pin it into place or baste it down. Now what we're going to do once we have that lined up, we are going to lay out our pant legs, and we are going to match up our inseam seam. So what I like to do here is I will pull out my glue stick again, and right at these edges I will put a little dab of glue so that I can make sure my folded edge here stays nice and even. And because if you just pin it, most of the time when you put it in your machine and feed it, the feed dogs will pull one edge under a little bit, and then you're gonna have a not so pretty little lip at the bottom there. And so this just holds everything in place to help prevent that, so it can't pull on evenly. So I'll just do that at the bottom, and then we're going to just start. I'm going to pin at my ankles first, and then I'm going to go up to my crotch seams and pin those together. Now, one thing, like you can kind of see here, this one isn't too different, but a lot of times the back pant leg will be bigger and wider than the front pant leg, and that is because the backs of our bodies are bigger than the front. And a lot of times I see people thinking that they should be the same width, and they get confused when they're not lining up because they're laying flat. They're not supposed to line up when they're laying flat. Our bodies are not two-dimensional, and they are not the same on both sides. So all you want to do is you just want to make them line up and pull those raw edges together and match those up. So I'm going to start up here at the inseam now, and then work my way down, keeping those lined up. And if you have to, like I said, if you have to bunch up the pants to make a match, that is perfectly fine, and that is typically the intention of the pattern unless it says otherwise. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and I'm going to start down at one ankle, sew all the way up, pivot, and go all the way back down, all in one big seam. Once those are sewn, so you can see here how those line up nicely when they open it up. So that's what I was talking about, so that sometimes if it slips, it'll come down and then you'll have an uneven lip here. Now there's a couple options you can do to finish this. I will probably, it's kind of hard, especially on these smaller sizes, to be able to do this, but if you fold, I will just pull my serging down, my tails under, and then fold the seam over on top of it, and then I'll just go with a straight stitch and go up and down here to tack that down. Typically on a lot of things I will just put this here and do a zigzag over it, but this is pretty bulky because it does have 4 layers of fabric and 2 layers of elastic in this little seam here, and I just really see that being uncomfortable poking out, so I will probably tack that down, and that will also secure my serger end. So I will tack that down here, and again, you could use a zigzag to tack that down, or you could also do it by hand, because like I said, that can be kind of hard to get your presser foot in there and get that sewn down on those smaller sizes. So the next thing we're going to do, and actually the last thing we're going to do, is attach our waistband, and this really is a couple steps here, and this is considered a fold over elastic waistband. And for the waistband, we are going to be using 1.5 inch elastic for all sizes. So it doesn't matter what size you're making, it's going to be 1.5 inches, and you're going to cut your elastic to the length again in the tutorial. Again, stretch it, and let's see, I didn't stretch it far enough, so I'm going to do that extra end. I'm going to cut my elastic down, and then we are going to put our elastic away because we clean up after ourselves, right? So we don't have a huge mess at the end. So let me put my elastic away. And I will say, this elastic I get from Wawak, and I buy it in these, I think they're 25-yard rolls, and it only comes in 1.5 and 1.25 inch, but this is the best waistband elastic. It is so soft, so stretchy, it doesn't pinch you, it's not too tight. And you can get it relatively cheap when you buy it in these big rolls. I mean, it's like, I think it's like $25 or something, but again, this is a 25-yard roll and it'll last forever, but it is the best elastic. It's the I think it's called the sports waistband elastic, I think is what it is, but I'll put a link to it down below. And trust me, once you try this elastic, you will never go back to other elastic. I have ran out and tried other elastics and definitely regret not just waiting to get this. And it's super fast shipping. Even I bought this like right before Christmas, and it came in 2 days, I think. So what we're gonna do is we are going to just take our elastic and fold it in a circle and overlap the ends about 1/4 inch. The instructions say to just butt the ends up and sew them, but I don't really find that to be super secure, so I always like to overlap them just a little bit, and I always account for that depending on if the pattern says to butt the ends. I'll account for that, so like I'm overlapping them 1/4 inch, so I added that extra into the length. And again, 1/4 inch isn't going to really make or break your elastic. And if you are sewing for yourself especially, I always say to double check the elastic, because like I said, this elastic is a lot different than some other elastics. Some of them don't have as much stretch, so elastics are not created equal. They don't have the same stretch, so they're not going to fit the same. So just because a pattern says a certain measurement doesn't mean that that is actually what's going to work. And it also is a preference thing on how tight you like your elastic, what the thing is, how tight it needs to be to hold up the fabric. So I always say put it around your waist, see how it feels, and then cut that and just use the pattern recommendations as a guide. But so I'm just going to go take a long wide zigzag stitch, and I'll usually like go up and down like maybe 2 times. I'll go back and forth so that there's 4 rows of stitching to really secure this together. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew that together and be right back. All right, so I have that sewn and now it's in a circle. You can kind of see my stitching there, but it blends in. And now the instructions say to do this while it's inside out, but I much prefer to do my waistbands when they are right side out. It's a lot easier to do. And so what we're going to do first is I'm going to take my waistband, and my seam is going to be my center back, and then I'm going to just fold it in half here, and this fold is my center front. And I actually like to mark this with a marker because it can be harder to do with a pin because it is kind of thick and a clip slide, and clips aren't very exact. Like I could put this on and I could be off by 1/4 of an inch or so on my clip. So I just do a marker and it's going to be hidden anyway. So now I'm going to line up my center front, my center back, and find my side folds and mark those. And then we're going to come down to our pants, and I'm going to take my center seam and line it up with my back crotch seam and pin that in place, lining up the top edge of my elastic to the raw edge of my waist. I'm going to take my front center seam of my elastic, line it up to the front center seam of my pants. And then I'm going to come over to my sides. Now, on baby sizes, it doesn't really make a difference enough to do this. But as you can see, the front of the pants are lower than the back of the pants. So your length of your front of your pants is not going to be the same as the length of the back, just because of the curves and the distance of those curves. So typically you would want to line up your front and back and really lay them out and line up and kind of track your seams and find that actual 1/4 point, because technically your side seams are not your 1/4 point, kind of like on shirt. The shoulder points are not your 1/4 points for the same reason. But like I said, on these smaller sizes, it's usually like 1/8 of an inch or something different, so it's not enough to really stress about it. So I'm not going to worry about it. On bigger sizes and adult garments, it can get up to you know, like upwards of like 1 inch or so difference, or it also depends on the style and things of the garment. So that's just something to note there. But once you have your elastic lined up, so you can see how the elastic is a lot smaller than the waist and you have these gaping. So that is why we matched up these points, so that they are matched up evenly around. And now I'm going to go over to my serger. I go to the longest stitch length, I turn off my blade, and you are going to slightly stretch your elastic evenly in between these spaces, keeping the edges lined up, and serge this edge on all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and be right back. All right, so once you have that sewn on, it is going to look like this. And I did forget to mention, I do have a full in-depth tutorial on this next step of top stitching the elastic. I believe I started at this point here with the folding it over and top stitching it to make it look nice and even. So I'll go over it briefly here. If you want to check out that video for a more in-depth tutorial, I'll put a link to it down below. But what we're going to do now is we are going to fold the top over, and you want to make sure that like when you fold it, you don't have any excess fabric over the top. So like here is the edge of my elastic, I can feel it in there, and there's all of this extra. You want to make sure that your fold is hugging your elastic nice and tight, but you don't want to do it too tight that your elastic is folding. So you want it just over the top edge of your elastic there. And I do my same marking point, so I find my 1/4 points and I line them up and I fold it down on top of my seam just to keep it even and lined up, and pin those down there and work my way around to all 4 of those points. And then once I do that, I am going to keep this folded over, and now you're going to go over to your sewing machine. You're going to top stitch basically on top of your serging threads. I like to use a wide zigzag stitch when I do this, a long wide zigzag stitch. I like the look of it when it's done, and I find that it works really well and it still stretches. So what you're going to do is you're going to keep it folded down, and you are going to again stretch your whole waistband, but technically only the elastic because you don't want to overstretch it and stretch out your fabric. So you're going to stretch it, keeping this hugging your edge, and you want to pull it taut. So I would put my presser foot here. I would pull from behind the presser foot and in front equal amounts, and then I wouldn't yank it through my machine or pull it so that it's getting stuck. Equal amounts, and I kind of like lift up a little bit and guide it through my presser foot, and then adjust, go to the next section, guide it through. Now, when you get to the pocket part, it is pretty thick, so you just want to be careful there. And you also want to make sure that your pocket is staying folded down and hugging that elastic, because it's really easy when you get to there to kind of forget about that, or to catch your pocket on the top stitching and have it all folded up and messed up underneath there. So you want to make sure that that is laying nice and flat, and when you go over it under your presser foot, that this here is staying nice and flat and your pocket bag is staying nice and flat as well. Then you just continue working your way all the way around those, and then you are done. All right, once you get your waistband top stitched, you are done. And you always could like tack down a faux drawstring there if you wanted to. I don't ever do that. I am not a fan of drawstrings myself or on my kids' things. That's just, again, a personal preference. But like I said, these are so cute, and they're just that big slouchy fit. I will try them on my daughter here in a little bit. This is her size. I will say her inseam is a size down, but I always just stick to this size so that then she can grow into them as she grows taller. So just take note of that when you see the fit on her. But again, these are so cute. And one thing I will say is typically here, because there is so much thickness where the pocket is, the waistband will flatten out a little bit when you top stitch it, just because there's too much there to kind of scrunch it in. But once they're on and stretched out, it evens out. So don't worry about that. But here you go, and I will show you. There is my top stitching when it's stretched out and then it scrunches in. And I just like the zigzag because it kind of helps give it those that ridged look, and the gathers of the fabric kind of go into those zigzags. So that is my preference, and you can kind of even out these as well. And one thing I will say too on the ankles that I forgot to mention is I like to kind of stretch them out and get them nice and even, and then I will go over to my side seam where there's not, on the one that doesn't have the seam, that outer seam, and just put a little stitch in the ditch, meaning I stitch on top of my stitching line and tack that down to prevent that from rolling or anything when it's being worn or put on or in the wash. So yeah, these are super cute and relatively quick, and a semi-simple pattern that I love. Like I said, I'll put a link to everything down below, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below and I would be happy to help. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's @Sewbexx. It's SEWBEXX, and you can reach out to me there as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.